The chamber floated in the darkness of space like a crown of light. The Galactic Unity Council's headquarters orbited Verath Prime, the oldest and most powerful world in known space. Inside the massive circular room, representatives from 43 species sat in their designated sections. Each area was designed for the specific biology of its occupants. The Kalari needed high heat. The Torvan required low-gravity fields. The Sistan breathed methane through elegant masks. Ambassador Park Min-ho of Earth sat in the human section. It was small, just 3 seats in a chamber that could hold thousands. He wore a simple black suit, the kind diplomats on Earth had worn for centuries. His hair was gray at the temples. His face showed no emotion, though his hands rested carefully on the datapad in front of him. The emergency session had been called 6 hours ago. The message had gone out across all council space with the highest priority code. Park had known what it meant immediately. The threat they had all feared for months was finally here. High Chancellor Vexthor stood at the center of the chamber. He was Torvan, a species that looked like they were carved from blue crystal. Light moved through his body in patterns that showed his mood. Right now, those patterns were sharp and aggressive. His voice boomed through the translation system. "The Void Swarm has been detected at the edge of the Corvan sector," Vexthor announced. "Long-range sensors confirm a fleet of at least 50,000 bioships. They will reach the outer colonies in 72 hours. The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted in dozens of languages. The translation system struggled to keep up. Park sat quietly and waited. "Order!" Vexthor's voice cut through the noise. "We have faced the swarm before. They are raiders, scavengers. We will deploy the Torvan Armada to the threatened sectors. The Kalari Shield Fleet will establish defensive positions. The crisis will be managed." Park pressed the button to request speaking time. A soft chime sounded. Vexthor's crystalline eyes turned toward the human section. For a moment, the Chancellor seemed ready to ignore the request. Then, with obvious reluctance, he gestured. "The ambassador from Earth wishes to speak," Vexthor said. His tone made it clear what he thought of that. Park stood. He moved to the speaker's platform in the center of the chamber. Around him, representatives from species that had traveled the stars for thousands of years looked down at him, some with curiosity, most with barely hidden contempt. "Thank you, Chancellor," Park said. His voice was calm. "Earth has been monitoring the Void Swarm's movements for the past 14 weeks. We have compiled extensive tactical analysis. Our military assessment indicates this is not a typical raid." He activated his datapad. Holographic displays appeared in the air above the chamber. They showed star charts, movement patterns, and fleet compositions. "The swarm's approach vector is wrong for a raiding pattern," Park continued. "They are moving in coordinated waves. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected gravitational anomalies that suggest their true fleet size is much larger than current estimates. We believe the visible fleet is just the forward element." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Several representatives were actually laughing. "With respect," Park said, and his voice hardened slightly. "Earth requests permission to deploy our war fleets to supplementary defensive positions. We have 847 ships ready to move within the hour. Our vessels can provide additional coverage in sectors the main council fleets cannot reach in time." The laughter grew louder. A Kalari representative stood. Her name was Shivarex, and her scales gleamed red and gold under the chamber lights. "The human offers us ships," she said, and her voice dripped with amusement. "What does Earth fly? Vessels that still use chemical propulsion? Kinetic weapons that require physical projectiles?" She turned to face Park directly. "Ambassador, your species barely left your own star system 50 years ago. Leave warfare to those who have perfected it over millennia." Other voices joined her. The Sistan representative spoke through his translator. "Human tactical analysis, based on what experience? Your people have never faced a real space threat. You know nothing of true war." Park's expression did not change. He had expected this. Earth always received the same treatment in the Council. Humanity was too new, too primitive, too different. Our assessment is based on solid data, Park said quietly. We have sensor networks positioned throughout dark space. We have been tracking the swarm's staging areas. If the Council would review our intelligence gathered with inferior technology, another representative interrupted. Sensors that cannot match Torvan scanning arrays, analysis performed by military minds with no real combat experience. Vexthor raised his hand. The chamber fell silent. The Chancellor's internal light patterns showed something that looked like pity mixed with irritation. Ambassador Park, Vexthor said slowly, as if explaining something to a child. Earth's concern is noted. However, the Galactic Unity Council has defended civilization for 10,000 years. We have faced the Void Swarm dozens of times. We know their patterns. We know their weaknesses. Your species brings enthusiasm, and that is admirable, but enthusiasm is not expertise. Park stood very still. Chancellor, our data shows— Your data is incomplete, Vexthor interrupted, based on limited sensor range and inexperienced analysis. The Torvan Armada alone has more firepower than your entire species could generate. Our energy weapons can sterilize entire continents. Our shields can withstand direct star core temperatures. What does Earth bring to this fight? Metal slugs fired from railguns? Fusion missiles that your people celebrate as achievements? Laughter echoed through the chamber again. Park heard it all. Every mocking tone, every dismissive comment. He had heard it for 3 years, ever since Earth had been granted Provisional Council membership. Humanity was always the joke, the primitives who thought they belonged among the truly advanced. The swarm adapts, Park said, and his voice cut through the noise. They learn. They change their biology to counter whatever weapons worked before. Energy-based attacks that succeeded in the last encounter may not work now. Diversity of approach might be valuable. Diversity? Shivarex laughed. Is that what humans call being backward? Ambassador, your people fight like you are still in your planet's industrial age. Solid ammunition, chemical explosives. You celebrate these things as if they are innovations rather than relics. A Torvan military commander stood. His name was Carvin, and his service record included victories in 30 major conflicts. I reviewed Earth's military specifications, he said. His tone was not quite mocking, but close. Your largest warship masses 4 million tons. Our destroyers are larger. Your weapons require you to be within visual range of the enemy. Our lance beams strike from light minutes away. How exactly do you propose to help? Park looked at the commander. By doing what needs to be done. Which is? Winning. The chamber went quiet for a moment. Then Vexthor actually laughed. It was a sound like crystal chimes breaking. Such confidence, such spirit. This is why we admire humanity, Ambassador Park. You have courage, you have determination. But courage without capability is just noise. And frankly, Earth's capabilities are not relevant to this situation. Park gathered his data pads. Then Earth will withdraw our offer of assistance. A wise decision, Vexthor said. Let your people watch and learn how the Council handles real threats. Consider it an educational opportunity. Park walked back toward his section. As he passed various representatives, he heard their whispered comments. Did they really think we needed them? Humans and their pride. Let them play with their primitive weapons at home. He sat down. His face still showed nothing. Inside, a cold calculation was running. He had tried. He had warned them. They had made their choice. The Council continued its session. Battle plans were discussed. The Torvan Armada would form the primary strike force, 300 vessels of incredible power. The Kalari Shield Fleet would establish defensive perimeters around the colonies. Their energy shields could protect entire planets. The system would provide logistical support. Everything was organized. Everything was certain. "The swarm will break against our defenses as they always have," Vexithor proclaimed. "In 72 hours, this threat will be eliminated." Council is adjourned. The representatives began to leave. Park stayed seated for a moment. His assistant, a young human woman named Kim Soo-jin, leaned close. "Ambassador, should we transmit the refusal to Earth Command?" she asked quietly. Park nodded. "Use the priority channel, direct to Fleet Admiral Choi." "What message should I send?" Park thought for a moment. "Tell the Admiral that the Council has declined Earth's assistance. Tell her they believe their energy weapons and shield technology will be sufficient." Soo-jin's eyes widened slightly. "And the Admiral's response will be?" "Protocol 7, Park said quietly. Soo-jin went pale. Protocol 7 was not something discussed openly. It was not in any official documentation. But every human in the diplomatic corps knew what it meant. "Are you certain?" she whispered. Park stood. He looked around the emptying chamber. He saw representatives congratulating each other on their excellent defensive plan. He saw Vexthor speaking with military commanders, his crystal body glowing with confidence. He saw Shivarex laughing with her aides about the primitive humans who thought they could help. "I am certain," Park said. "Earth will handle this our own way." He walked toward the exit. Behind him, Soo-jin activated her encrypted communicator. The message would reach Earth in 6 hours, traveling on quantum-linked channels that even the Council did not know humanity possessed. In the corridor outside, Park passed a group of Kalari junior officers. They were still laughing about something. "Did you hear the human wanted to deploy their fleet?" one said. "As if metal tubes with chemical rockets could make a difference?" "I wonder if they even know how to fight in 3 dimensions," another replied. "Their whole species thinks war is still about pointing guns and pulling triggers." Park kept walking. He did not respond. There was no point. He reached the human diplomatic office. It was small, tucked away in a section of the station that got little traffic. Inside, his small staff was already packing. They had been expecting this. "Sir?" His deputy, Ambassador Lee Sung-min, looked up. "Are we really doing this?" "The message has been sent," Park said. "We have 48 hours to evacuate all non-essential personnel from Council space. They will ask questions. Let them ask." Park moved to his office window. Outside, he could see Verath Prime turning slowly below. Beautiful. Ancient, confident in its safety, confident in its superiority. He thought about Fleet Admiral Choi Seo-yeon. She would have received his earlier tactical assessments. She would have seen the real data from Earth's deep space sensors. She would know what was coming, and she would know what to do. "Ambassador," Soo-jin appeared in the doorway. "I have confirmation from Earth Command. Admiral Choi sends her regards. She says to tell you that humanity remembers its friends, and the Council was never our friend." Park nodded slowly. "Begin evacuation procedures. I want every human civilian out of Council space within 36 hours. The Council will notice." "Yes," Park said. "They will." He looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 847 human warships were receiving new orders. Orders that would change everything. The Council had mocked Earth's offer of help. They had laughed at human weapons. They had dismissed human tactics as primitive and irrelevant. They would learn. By dawn, they would learn exactly what humanity was capable of when the civilized species chose to ignore what needed to be done. Park's reflection in the window showed no expression, but his eyes were hard as stone. "They should have listened," he said quietly. The monitoring station at the edge of Kalari space had been watching the same sector for 6 hours. 3 analysts sat at their stations, tracking hundreds of vessels as they moved through the standard patrol routes. It was boring work, the kind of duty that junior officers got assigned when they needed to learn patience. Analyst Third Class Mervantok was checking the human fleet positions out of habit, more than necessity. Earth ships always stayed in their designated patrol zones. They followed the rules exactly. Predictable, simple, boring. Then his display flickered. Mervantok blinked his inner eyelids and checked the readout again. The contact marker for Human Patrol Group Delta 7 was gone. Not moving, not jumping to faster-than-light speeds. Just gone. "Sensor error," he muttered, running a diagnostic. The systems came back clean. He expanded his view. Human Patrol Group Delta 9 was also missing. So was Delta 12. "Commander?" Mervantok's voice was uncertain. "I am showing anomalous readings on the human fleet positions." Commander Shalrix did not look up from her own display. "Define anomalous." "They are not there." "Commander." Now Shalrix turned. "Explain." 17 human vessels were on patrol in sectors 7 through 15. Now I am reading 0 contacts. No debris signatures, no energy trails, no faster-than-light wake signatures. They are simply absent from all sensors. Shalrix moved to his station. She looked at the display, her scales shifting to a concerned orange color. "Check the other sectors. All of them." Mervantok's claws moved across his controls. The data that came back made no sense. Human ships were disappearing across all of Council space. Not just patrol craft. Everything. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers. Entire battle groups that had been in stable orbits around human colony worlds were showing as absent. Defense stations that had been operational for years were reading as offline. "This is impossible," Shalrix whispered. "Contact Council Intelligence immediately. Priority alert." The message reached Council Intelligence headquarters 8 minutes later. Within 20 minutes, every major monitoring station in Council space was reporting the same thing. Earth's fleet was vanishing. In the Council Intelligence Analysis Center, dozens of specialists gathered around holographic displays. They showed all of known space. Little blue markers indicated human vessels. As they watched, those markers began to blink out. Not all at once, but steadily, methodically. Within a 3-hour window, 847 human warships disappeared from every sensor system in Council space. Director Val Shawn of the Torvin Intelligence Service stood at the center of the room. His crystalline body pulsed with confused patterns. "What are we seeing?" "Complete withdrawal," one analyst suggested. "They are retreating to Earth space." "No," another analyst countered. "There are no faster-than-light wake signatures, nothing on the hyperspace sensors. They are not traveling. They are vanishing." "Equipment malfunction? Across every monitoring system simultaneously? Impossible." Val Shawn activated his communicator. "Get me Chancellor Vexthor, now." While they waited, the analysts tried to understand what they were seeing. Several theories emerged. None of them made complete sense. "Could it be a technological failure?" someone asked. "If the human ships lost power simultaneously, they would still show on passive sensors," an expert replied. "Mass that large cannot hide." "We would detect gravitational distortion, heat signatures, something." "What if they activated some kind of stealth technology?" That suggestion caused several analysts to laugh. "Humans? Stealth technology advanced enough to fool Torvin sensors? They barely understand quantum mechanics." But the laughter died quickly, because whatever was happening, it was real, and it was complete. A junior analyst named Kim J. Wan sat at a workstation in the corner. He was human, one of only a handful working in Council intelligence. He had earned his position through excellent work, though his colleagues never let him forget that he was from a primitive species. "Kim," one of the Kalari analysts called. "You are human. Explain what your people are doing." Kim looked at his display. He saw the same data everyone else saw. His face showed no emotion. "I do not know. You must have some idea. Is this a retreat? Are your people abandoning the council?" "I do not know," Kim repeated. "Your homeworld is withdrawing its entire military presence during a crisis. You expect us to believe you know nothing?" Kim met the analyst's eyes. "I am a civilian intelligence analyst. I am not informed of military operations." He paused. "But if I were to guess, I would say you should have listened to Ambassador Park." Before anyone could respond, Chancellor Vexthor appeared on the main display. His crystalline face showed confusion and growing anger. "Explain this situation," he demanded. Director Valshan gestured to the displays. "Chancellor, Earth's fleet has disappeared from all monitoring systems. We have 0 contacts on any human military vessel outside of Earth's home system." "Disappeared? You mean retreated?" "No, Chancellor. We mean disappeared. No travel signatures, no energy trails, no communication signals. They are simply absent." Vexthor's light patterns shifted to angry red. "This is unacceptable. The Void Swarm will arrive in 58 hours. We are facing a crisis, and Earth chooses this moment to play games with us." "We do not believe this is a game, Chancellor." "Then what is it?" No one had an answer. Vexthor's voice became harder. "Contact the human diplomatic stations. Demand an explanation. Inform them that this behavior violates Council protocols." But when they tried to reach the human diplomatic stations, they found those were also closing. Embassy staff were evacuating. Automated messages played on every channel. "Earth diplomatic personnel are being recalled. All inquiries should be directed to Earth Central Authority. Thank you for your cooperation." The message was polite, professional, and completely uninformative. "They are abandoning us," someone whispered. "In our moment of need, the humans are running away." Kim Jae-won said nothing, but inside he felt a cold satisfaction. They had mocked Ambassador Park. They had laughed at Earth's offer of help. Now they would learn what it meant when humanity stopped asking for permission. Across Council space, the reaction to Earth's disappearance spread like fire. Military commanders demanded explanations. Political leaders called for sanctions. Media networks speculated wildly. At a monitoring station near the Corvan colonies, a Kalari scout pilot named Lee Hana prepared her fighter for a patrol mission. She had been born on Earth, adopted by Kalari parents when she was 3. She served in the Kalari military with pride, but she had never forgotten her human heritage. Her squadron leader gave the briefing. "We are checking the last known positions of human patrol groups. Council wants confirmation that the humans have actually withdrawn." Lee Hana and 3 other pilots launched. They flew to coordinates where a human destroyer had been on patrol 6 hours ago. Their sensors showed empty space. "No contacts," her wingman reported. "Not even debris." They moved to the next position. Same result. And the next, and the next. "Where did they go?" her wingman asked. "How does an entire fleet just vanish?" Lee Hana thought about the stories her human grandmother used to tell her. Stories about Earth's military history, about submarines that hunted in silence, about special forces that struck from shadows, about wars won not through superior firepower, but through being where the enemy never expected. "Maybe they did not vanish," she said quietly. "Maybe they just stopped letting us see them." "That makes no sense." "Does any of this make sense?" Back at Council headquarters, the emergency session reconvened. The chamber was full. Every representative wanted answers. Vexthor stood at the center, his crystalline body showing stress patterns. "The human fleet has withdrawn from Council space," he announced. "All attempts to contact Earth's military command have been unsuccessful." "Ambassador Park has left our space, along with all human diplomatic staff." Angry voices filled the chamber. "This is treason!" one representative shouted. "They are cowards, running from the swarm! Earth should be expelled from the council!" Vexthor raised his hands for silence. "We do not have time for this. The Void Swarm will arrive in 52 hours. The Torvin Armada is in position. The Kalari Shield Fleet is ready. We will handle this threat as we always have, with or without human assistance." But privately, in meetings that were not recorded, Council military leaders discussed what Earth's withdrawal meant. 847 ships, one Torvin admiral said. "That is not a small force. We had planned to use them for secondary defensive positions." "We can adjust," another replied. "The humans were never critical to our strategy. But where did they go?" That question no one could answer. In the Kalari Shield Fleet's flagship, Commander Shivarex studied tactical displays. She was the one who had mocked Park in the council chamber. Now she felt uncertain. "What if the human was right?" her tactical officer asked quietly. "What if this swarm attack is larger than we estimated?" "Then we will adapt," Shivarex said firmly. "We always do." But she kept thinking about Park's face when he left the chamber. He had shown no anger, no frustration, just cold calculation, like a man who had already moved on to the next step of a plan. 40 hours before the swarm's arrival, another report came to Council intelligence. This one from deep space monitoring stations at the very edge of explored space. "We are detecting unusual readings," the report said. "Gravitational anomalies in dark space, multiple signatures consistent with large vessels moving through uncharted regions." "Swarm advanced scouts?" someone asked. "No, the signatures are wrong. These are not bioships." "Then what are they?" "Unknown. But if we are reading the mass calculations correctly, there are hundreds of vessels out there. Moving fast, moving dark." Director Valshan studied the report with growing unease. He called Kim Jae-won to his office. "You are human," Valshan said without preamble, "and you are smart. What are your people doing?" Kim looked at the data. "I do not know." "That is not good enough. 847 warships do not just disappear. They did not return to Earth. Our sensors would have detected that." "So where are they?" Kim was quiet for a long moment. "Director, may I speak candidly?" "Please." "Ambassador Park came to the council with intelligence about the swarm, real intelligence, based on sensor networks that Earth has been building in dark space for years. Networks that the council did not know about, because no one asked. No one cared what the primitive humans were doing out at the edge of nowhere." Valshan's light pattern shifted. "Continue." "Park said this was not a normal swarm raid. He said the visible fleet was just the forward element. He was ignored, mocked, told that humanity knows nothing of war." Kim met the director's crystalline eyes. What if he was right? What if Earth saw something in the data that the council missed? "You think the human fleet went to engage the swarm?" "I think the human fleet went to do what Admiral Park said needed to be done. And I think they did not ask for permission because they knew they would not receive it." Valshan sat down heavily. "If they engage the swarm without council authorization, if they operate in dark space without coordination, the casualties could be catastrophic." "Yes," Kim agreed quietly. "They could. Why would they take such a risk?" Kim thought about that. He thought about Earth's history, about a species that had fought itself for thousands of years, that had built weapons capable of destroying their own world, that had somehow survived and made it to the stars despite being younger and less advanced than everyone else. "Because someone has to," Kim said finally, "and because Earth has never been good at waiting for permission to do what is right." The session ended. Valshan sat alone in his office, looking at the tactical displays. The swarm was coming. The council's forces were ready. Everything was according to plan. Except for the humans. Somewhere out in dark space, 847 human warships were doing something the Council could not see, could not track, could not understand. Valshan thought about what Vexthor had said in the Council chamber. Leave warfare to those who have perfected it over millennia. But war was not about perfection. It was about winning, about doing whatever was necessary, about going to places others would not go. Maybe, Valshan thought, humanity understood that better than species who had spent millennia fighting from comfortable distance with clean energy weapons. Maybe the primitives knew something the civilized species had forgotten. Outside his window, stars burned in the darkness, and somewhere among them, humans were moving in silence, going dark, going deep, going to war in a way that made sense to a species that had learned to fight in the shadows of their own world. The Council would know soon enough. By dawn, everything would be clear, or everything would be over. The void swarm emerged from dark space like a plague made manifest. First came the scouts, small bioships that looked like twisted combinations of insect and nightmare. They appeared at the edge of the Corvin sector in groups of hundreds, their organic hulls pulsing with sickly bioluminescence. Council sensors detected them immediately. "Contact," the monitoring station reported. "Multiple biosignatures entering normal space. Confirmed void swarm classification." Admiral Carvin of the Torvin Armada stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Victory. Around him, holographic displays showed the emerging threat. His crew worked with practiced efficiency. They had done this before. "Deploy the fleet to attack formation," Carvin ordered. "Prepare lance batteries. Target the lead elements." 300 Torvin warships moved into position. Each vessel was a marvel of engineering, built over centuries of accumulated knowledge. Their energy weapons could crack planets. Their shields could withstand anything short of a supernova. The swarm scouts moved forward. They did not form organized lines. They swarmed as their name suggested, moving in chaotic patterns that somehow worked as a coordinated whole. "Range in 30 seconds, the tactical officer reported. "Lance batteries charged and ready." "Fire when ready," Carvin said calmly. The Eternal Victory's main lance battery released a beam of concentrated energy. It crossed the distance between the fleet and the swarm at the speed of light. The beam struck the lead bioship and burned completely through it. The creature vessel died instantly, its organic hull boiling away. All across the Torvin battle line, lance beams reached out. Dozens of swarm scouts died in the first volley, then hundreds. "Target acquisition optimal," the tactical officer reported with satisfaction. "They are holding formation, continuing fire." But Admiral Carvin watched his displays with growing concern. The swarm was not retreating. More scouts were emerging from dark space, hundreds, thousands, and behind them, larger shapes were beginning to appear. "How many?" he asked quietly. "Current count exceeds 10,000 small bioships," the sensor officer replied. "Larger contacts now emerging. Classification, Swarm Warrior Class. Count rising." Carvin had fought the swarm before, 3 times in his career. Each time they had come in groups of a few thousand at most, raiding forces looking for organic material to consume. The Council fleets had always driven them back. This was different. "Estimate total swarm fleet size," he ordered. The sensor officer worked his controls. The number that came back made him check his readings twice. "Admiral, if the emergence rate continues, we are looking at over 1 million bioships." The bridge went quiet. "Confirm that reading," Carvin said, his voice still controlled. "Confirmed, Admiral. This is not a raid. This is an invasion fleet." Carvin activated the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, this is the Admiral. We are facing a larger force than anticipated. Maintain formation. Continue firing. We hold this line." But even as he gave the orders, he thought about Ambassador Park's warning. The human had been right. This was not a normal swarm attack. The first wave of swarm warriors reached weapons range. They were larger than the scouts, with armored carapaces and bio-cannons that fired acidic projectiles. The Torvan shields held against the first impacts. The lance batteries continued to fire, destroying hundreds of enemy vessels. But more kept coming. In the Kalari shield fleet, Commander Shiva-Rex watched the battle unfold on her tactical displays. Her fleet was positioned behind the Torvan line, ready to establish defensive shields around the colonies if any swarm ships broke through. "The Torvan are holding," her tactical officer reported, "but the swarm numbers are overwhelming." Shiva-Rex saw it too. For every swarm ship the Torvan destroyed, 3 more emerged from dark space. The enemy was not using tactics, they were using mass. Pure, terrifying numbers. "Ready the shield generators," she ordered. "Prepare to cover the colonies." Her communication officer looked up. "Commander, we are receiving evacuation requests from the outer colonies. They can see the swarm on their long-range sensors. They are afraid. Tell them the Council fleet will hold." "We always have." But Shiva-Rex thought about the mocking words she had spoken to Park in the Council chamber, about how humans knew nothing of real war. She pushed the thought away. On the colony world of Corvin III, millions of civilians watched the sky and waited. They had faith in the Council fleet. The Torvan had never failed them. The Kalari shields had never broken. Lihana's fighter squadron was on patrol near the Kalari fleet's defensive perimeter. She could see the battle in the distance, flashes of energy weapons lighting up the darkness like a deadly light show. "This is bigger than the briefing said," her wingman transmitted. "They said it would be a raid. That is not a raid." Lihana checked her sensor displays. The swarm kept coming, a flood of bio-ships that seemed endless. "No," she agreed quietly. "That is exactly what the human ambassador said it would be." What did he say? That the Council was not ready, that this was different. "The Torvan will hold. They always hold." Lihana wanted to believe that. She had trained with the Kalari, served with them. They were brave and skilled, but she had also grown up hearing stories from her human grandmother. Stories about battles where bravery was not enough, where even the strongest defenses could be overwhelmed. The Torvan battle line was beginning to bend. Admiral Carven saw it happening. His ships were fighting perfectly. Every shot found a target. Every shield held. But there were too many enemies. The swarm was not retreating, not slowing. They kept pushing forward, accepting losses that would have broken any thinking species. "Third Wing is reporting ammunition depletion," an officer reported. "Lance batteries down to 40% charge capacity." "Rotate the wing back," Carven ordered. "Bring up reserves." But the reserves were already committed. Every ship in the Torvan Armada was engaged, and the swarm kept coming. A new type of bioship emerged from the swarm mass, larger than the warriors. These were heavy assault forms, with thick armor that shrugged off lance beam hits. They moved slowly but deliberately toward the Torvan line. "Target the heavy forms," Carven ordered. "Concentrate fire." The fleet focused its weapons on the new threat. The heavy assault ships died hard, requiring multiple direct hits to destroy, but more kept coming. And while the Torvan dealt with the heavy ships, the smaller warriors and scouts pressed the flanks. "Casualties?" Carven asked. 7 ships destroyed, 23 with heavy damage. Shields failing across multiple vessels. In 1,000 years of service, the Torvan Armada had never lost 7 ships in a single engagement. The battle continued for 6 hours. The Torvan held their line through discipline and firepower, but slowly, inevitably, the swarm was pushing through. "Contact the Kalari fleet," Carven ordered. "Tell Commander Shiva-Rex to activate the defensive shields. Swarm elements will reach the colonies within the hour." Shiva-Rex received the message with a cold feeling in her chest. The Torvan were not holding. For the first time in recorded history, the Torvan Armada was being pushed back. "Activate all shield generators," she ordered. "Cover the colonies. Everything we have." The Kalari ships moved into position around the inhabited worlds. Massive shield generators powered up, creating energy barriers that covered entire planets. The shields were strong enough to withstand sustained bombardment from capital ships. They would hold against the swarm. They had to hold. The first swarm warriors to break through the Torvan line hit the Kalari shields at full speed. They died on impact, their biomass burning away against the energy barriers. More followed, and more. "Shields holding at 97%, the tactical officer reported. Shivarex watched the display. The swarm was throwing itself against the shields in waves, thousands of bioships dying every minute. But the numbers did not decrease. For every ship that died, 2 more arrived from dark space. "How long can we maintain the shields?" she asked quietly. "At current power consumption, 72 hours, but if the impact rate increases, it will increase," Shivarex said. She knew it with cold certainty. This was not the end of the attack. This was just the beginning. On the surface of Corvin III, civilians huddled in shelters and watched the sky turn orange with the burn of dying bioships against the shields. Children cried. Parents tried to comfort them. Everyone wondered the same thing. Would the shields hold? In Council headquarters, Chancellor Vexthor received the reports with growing horror. The tactical display showed the truth in painful clarity. The swarm was overwhelming his forces through sheer numbers. The Torvan Armada, undefeated for 1,000 years, was in retreat. The Kalari shields were holding, but for how long? "Activate all reserve fleets," he ordered. "Every ship we have. Deploy them to the Corvin sector immediately." "Chancellor," Director Valshawn said carefully, "the reserves will take 48 hours to arrive. The colonies may not have that long." Vexthor's light patterns showed something that looked like desperation. "Then what do you suggest?" "We need the humans." "The humans abandoned us." "Or," Valshawn said quietly, "they went to do what we should have let them do. Ambassador Park warned us. He said this was not a normal attack. He was right. We do not know where the human fleet is. We cannot contact them." Kim Jae-won stepped forward. He had been standing quietly in the corner of the command center, watching the disaster unfold. "Chancellor, permission to speak?" Vexthor turned to him. "Speak." "Earth has deep space monitoring networks throughout dark space. Networks that detected the true size of the swarm. If Admiral Park was right about the threat, maybe he was also right about how to fight it." "What did he say?" Kim pulled up the recording of Park's speech to the council. They listened to his calm voice explaining that the swarm approach vector was wrong, that the visible fleet was just the forward element, that diversity of approach might be valuable. "He said you do not fight the flood at the shoreline," Kim said. "He was telling you something, a strategy, but no one listened." Vexthor looked at the tactical display, at the swarm pouring through in endless waves, at his forces being pushed back despite their superior technology. "What did he mean?" Vexthor asked. "You do not fight a flood at the shoreline," Kim repeated slowly. "You destroy the dam. You stop the source." Understanding dawned on Valshon's crystalline face. "Dark space. The humans went into dark space. They are not fighting the invasion fleet. They are attacking the swarm's staging areas." "With what?" Vexthor demanded. "Primitive kinetic weapons? Chemical explosives? How does that help us?" "I do not know," Kim admitted, "but 847 ships went somewhere, and humanity does not run from fights. We learned that much about them over the past 3 years." On the Kalari defensive line, Lee Hana's squadron was ordered to help with evacuation operations. They escorted transport ships carrying civilians away from the colonies. As she flew, Lee Hana looked out at the battle. The shields were still holding. The Torvin were still fighting, but she could see it was not enough. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. Old stories about ancient wars on Earth, about soldiers who held impossible lines, about last stands and desperate measures. Sometimes, her grandmother had said, the bravest thing is not to hold the line. It is to go into the darkness and fight where the enemy thinks they are safe. Lihana keyed her communicator. Control, this is Hana. Question. Go ahead. Have we detected any swarm fleet movements in dark space? Any sign of their staging areas being attacked? There was a pause. Negative. All detected swarm activity is in normal space, attacking our positions. So we do not know what is happening in dark space? Correct. Why? Lihana looked at the stars. Just wondering where the humans went. The battle continued. The Torvin fought with everything they had. The Kalari shields held. Millions of civilians waited and hoped. And somewhere in the darkness beyond known space, something was happening. Something the Council could not see. Something that would change everything. The Swarm Queen mind did not think the way organic individuals thought. It was a collective consciousness spread across millions of bioships, each one a cell in a vast living organism. It had existed for thousands of years, consuming entire star systems, growing ever larger. The Queen Mind felt satisfaction as it processed reports from the invasion front. The younger species were fighting well, but they would fall. They always did. Energy weapons burned bright and killed many drones, but the swarm was infinite. For every drone lost, 3 more hatched. For every warrior destroyed, 5 took its place. Victory was inevitable. Then the Queen Mind felt something wrong. Deep in dark space, far behind the invasion front, a supply tendril went silent. Supply tendrils were the swarm's lifelines, bioships that carried nutrients from conquered worlds back to the hive clusters. Losing one was unusual but not alarming. Sometimes they failed. Sometimes they were caught by gravity wells. Then another tendril went silent, and another. The Queen Mind focused its attention backward, away from the bright battle at the Council's borders. Back into the darkness where the swarm had been building its strength for months. Back to the staging areas where millions of bioships waited to join the invasion. Something was cutting the supply lines. The Queen Mind directed scout forms to investigate. They jumped through dark space to the last known position of a supply tendril. They found nothing. No debris, no organic residue. Just empty space where a bioship carrying 10,000 tons of processed nutrients should have been. It was as if the ship had been deleted from existence. The Queen Mind experienced something it had not felt in 10,000 years. Not fear, exactly. The swarm did not fear. But uncertainty, confusion, a sense that something was happening outside its understanding. More reports came in. Hive ships in the staging areas were going silent. Not all at once. 1 here, 2 there. Small losses that individually meant nothing. But the pattern was wrong. The silence was wrong. The Queen Mind pulled awareness away from the invasion front and focused on the staging areas. It sent warrior forms to investigate, gave them direct instructions through the psychic link that bound all swarm creatures. Find what is attacking. Kill it. Deep in dark space, Fleet Admiral Choi Seo-yeon stood on the bridge of the stealth carrier Silent Promise. Around her, tactical displays showed a 3-dimensional map of swarm positions. Red markers indicated hive ships. Orange showed supply tendrils. Blue showed her fleet's positions. Except the blue markers were not quite accurate. Her ships were not exactly where the displays showed them. That was the point. Status? She asked quietly. Her tactical officer, Commander Huang Tai-yang, checked his displays. Strike Group 7 reports successful elimination of Hive Cluster 9 Alpha. No alerts detected. Strike Group 3 is in position on Target 12 Delta, waiting for your order. Choi nodded. She was 53 years old, with gray hair tied back in a simple braid. Her uniform was clean but worn. She had been in space for 14 days without rest, running an operation that most species would consider impossible. "Execute," she said. 40 light-years away, 4 human destroyers dropped out of dark stealth and fired. Their weapons were not energy beams. They were tungsten rods accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, kinetic weapons, the kind of thing the Council had mocked. The rods hit a swarm hive ship with the force of nuclear weapons. The bioship's organic armor, designed to absorb and disperse energy attacks, did nothing against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The kinetic rods punched through the hive ship's hull, through its internal organs, through the other side, and kept going. The hive ship died silently. No explosion, no energy signature. It just stopped functioning. The human destroyers went dark again and slipped away before any swarm warriors could respond. Choi watched the tactical display update. Another hive ship eliminated. That made 63 since the operation began. "Admiral," her communication officer said, "we are receiving a coded transmission from the Deep Space Monitoring Network. The Council fleets have engaged the swarm at the Corvin sector. Casualties? Heavy on both sides. The Torvin are being pushed back. The Kalari have activated planetary shields." Choi said nothing for a moment. She had tried to warn them. Ambassador Park had tried to warn them. The Council had laughed. Now people were dying. "How much longer until we reach the Queen Hive?" she asked. Commander Huang checked the navigation displays. 36 hours at current approach speed. But Admiral, the Queen Hive is protected by over 10,000 warrior forms. Even with our full fleet, a direct assault would be suicide. "Then we do not assault directly," Choi said. "We do what humanity does best. We adapt." She pulled up a display showing the swarm's hive structure. It was complex with multiple layers of support systems, supply tendrils bringing nutrients, communication nodes linking the Queen Mind to the invasion fleet, breeding clusters producing new bioships. "Target the breeding clusters first," she ordered, "then the communication nodes. We cut the swarm off from its reinforcements, then we blind it, then we kill it." Around her, the bridge crew worked in silence. They were professionals, veterans. Many had served together for years. They trusted their admiral, and they trusted each other. And they were fighting a war no one else would see. The human fleet had split into 20 smaller strike groups. Each group consisted of 30 to 40 ships. They operated independently, hitting targets across hundreds of light years of dark space. They used no communication beams that could be detected, no energy signatures that would give away their positions. They moved dark, struck hard, and vanished. Strike Group 12, led by Captain Park Ji-woo in the destroyer Quiet Thunder, approached a swarm breeding cluster. The cluster was a massive biostructure that produced warrior-class bioships. It was protected by 50 guardian forms. Park studied the tactical display. A direct attack would trigger an alert that would ripple through the entire swarm network. They needed to kill the cluster without being noticed. "Options?" he asked his tactical officer. "The cluster has organic sensors that detect energy signatures and movement. If we fire weapons, they will know." "What if we do not fire weapons?" The tactical officer looked confused. "Sir?" Park smiled slightly. "The cluster is in orbit around a dead moon. What if the moon was not as dead as it appears?" Understanding dawned. "You want to crash the moon into the cluster." "I want to adjust the moon's orbit slightly. Make it look natural. Gravitational calculations show that a small course change would put it on a collision path in approximately 6 hours. "That is insane," Park suggested. "Probably. But the swarm will see a natural disaster, not an attack. By the time they realize what happened, we will be long gone." They used maneuvering thrusters to attach to the dead moon. Over 3 hours, they carefully adjusted its trajectory. The changes were tiny, barely detectable. But physics was physics. The moon's new orbit would degrade, and in 6 hours it would impact the breeding cluster. The human ship slipped away into darkness. 6 hours later, the moon crashed into the breeding cluster at 12 kilometers per second. The impact destroyed the entire structure and killed all 50 Guardian forms. The swarm detected a catastrophic failure but saw no attack signature. Natural disaster. Bad luck. Except there was no such thing as luck. Only planning. The Queen Mind was becoming increasingly confused. Supply tendrils were not just going silent anymore. Entire hive clusters were failing. Breeding facilities were offline. Communication nodes were experiencing disruption. And there was still no clear enemy. The swarm had fought countless species. Energy weapons it understood. Missiles it could counter. Even the Council's advanced shields were just obstacles to overcome with sufficient mass. But this was different. The attacks left no trace, no energy signatures, no debris fields. Targets simply failed and went dark. The Queen Mind pulled more awareness back from the invasion front. It began recalling warrior forms from the attack on the Council borders. Something was attacking the swarm's foundation, and the Queen Mind needed to protect its core. On the Silent Promise, Admiral Choi saw the change immediately. "The swarm is pulling back forces," Commander Huang reported. "We are detecting warrior forms returning from the invasion front to dark space." "How many?" "Current estimates suggest 20% of the invasion fleet is being recalled." Choi allowed herself a small smile. "Then it is working. The swarm is afraid." "Can it feel fear, Admiral?" "Everything can feel fear when it starts losing." She activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All 20 strike groups would receive her message, though not in real time. Quantum communication was detectable. She used old-fashioned radio, time-delayed and encoded. "All groups, this is Choi. The swarm is recalling forces. That means we are hurting them. Continue operations, strike hard, stay dark. 30 hours until final assault on the Queen Hive. Make every shot count." Across dark space, human ships received the message and continued their silent war. Strike Group 7 found a communication relay and destroyed it with precisely placed explosives. The relay went offline, and 30,000 swarm bioships lost contact with the Queen Mind. Strike Group 15 caught a supply tendril in transit and eliminated it with a spread of torpedoes. 10,000 tons of nutrients that would never reach the swarm forces. Strike Group 3 found a warrior staging area and used their weapons ballistic mode. Tungsten penetrators fired from extreme range, each one targeted at a hive ship's vulnerable points. 12 hive ships died in 90 seconds. The human ships were gone before the remaining warriors even knew which direction the attack came from. It was not glorious. There were no heroic charges, no dramatic battles with ships exchanging fire at close range. It was systematic elimination, clinical, ruthless, efficient. It was how Earth fought when the rules did not matter. The Queen Mind finally understood it was facing a new kind of threat. Not energy weapons it could adapt to, not shields it could overwhelm with numbers, but something that struck from shadows, that killed without being seen, that destroyed the swarm's infrastructure while leaving the combat forces blind and unsupported. For the first time in its long existence, the Queen Mind made a decision based on survival rather than expansion. It began the recall. All swarm forces, all bioships, return to dark space, protect the core, abandon the invasion. In the Corvin sector, the Kalari and Torvin forces suddenly found the pressure easing. The endless waves of swarm bioships began to thin, then stopped, then started retreating. Commander Shivarex watched in disbelief as the swarm fleet turned and fled back into dark space. "What is happening?" she demanded. "Why are they retreating?" No one had an answer. Admiral Carvin of the Torvin Armada watched the same impossible sight. In 1,000 years of recorded history, the swarm had never retreated from a battle it was winning. "Pursue?" his tactical officer asked. No, Carvin said quietly. Something is happening. Something we do not understand. At Council headquarters, Chancellor Vexthor stared at the tactical displays in shock. The invasion was over. The swarm was gone. His forces had won. Except they had not won. They had been losing, badly. Director Valchon stood beside him. The swarm does not retreat, he said quietly, not unless something has gone catastrophically wrong for them. But what? Kim Jae-won stepped forward. Permission to speak, Chancellor? Speak. 847 human ships went dark 14 days ago. The swarm invasion began 3 days ago. The swarm is now retreating in panic. I do not believe in coincidences. Vexthor turned to him slowly. You think the humans did this? I think the humans did what Ambassador Park said they would do. They handled the situation their own way. But we have no confirmation, no battle reports, no communication. No, Kim agreed. Because that is how humanity fights when they are serious. In silence, in darkness, where the enemy never sees them coming. In dark space, Admiral Choi prepared for the final strike. The Queen Hive was ahead, protected by the recalled warrior forms. But those warriors were disorganized, confused, trying to protect a structure they could not see being attacked. All strike groups, Choi transmitted, converge on final target, engage on my mark. 800 human warships, battered and tired but still functional, emerged from stealth simultaneously. They surrounded the Queen Hive from all directions, and they opened fire, not with energy weapons that could be absorbed, with kinetic weapons. With torpedoes, with missiles and railguns and every solid matter weapon Earth had ever designed. The Queen Hive, built to withstand energy attacks, died in minutes under the kinetic barrage. The Queen Mind, ancient and vast, felt itself dying. In its final moments, it experienced true fear, and the last thing it processed was a simple thought. What kind of species fights like this? The first human ship to return to Council space was the destroyer Morning Light. She appeared on the edge of the Kalari defensive network 3 days after the swarm retreat. Her hull was scorched black. Her port side showed massive damage where something had torn through the armor. She was running on backup power, her main reactors offline. Lee Hana's fighter squadron was on patrol when they detected her. Unknown contact, her wingman reported. Energy signature is minimal. She is barely moving. Lee Hana checked her sensors. The ship's transponder was broadcasting human identification codes. It is one of ours. I mean one of Earth's. Should we escort her in? Lee Hana looked at the damaged ship limping through space. Yes, and tell command we have a human vessel returning. They are going to want to know about this. The Morning Light was not alone. Over the next 6 hours, more human ships appeared. They came singly or in small groups, emerging from the darkness like ghosts. All of them showed damage. Some were missing entire sections. Others were held together with emergency hull patches that glowed red from internal heat. By the second day, 401 human ships had returned to Council space. 446 were never coming home. The Council monitoring stations tracked every arrival. Intelligence officers studied the damage patterns. Military analysts tried to understand what they were seeing. Their shields failed, one Torvan analyst reported. Multiple vessels showed direct impact damage. Whatever they fought, it got close enough to touch them. Energy burns on the hulls, another added, but not from weapons we recognize. Organic acid damage. They were fighting the swarm. Director Valchon compiled the reports and brought them to Chancellor Vexthor. The human fleet is returning, he said without preamble. Less than half of what deployed. All survivors show heavy damage. Vexthor looked at the tactical displays. He saw the scattered human ships, many of them barely functional, crawling back to Council space on emergency power. Where were they? He asked quietly. Dark space. Based on the damage patterns and the timing, they have been operating in swarm territory since they disappeared. Admiral Carven's analysts believe they were conducting a strategic strike campaign against the swarm's core infrastructure. With what success? Valshan pulled up new data. The swarm has not been detected anywhere in Council space since their retreat 3 days ago. Long-range sensors show no activity in their previous staging areas. Whatever the humans did, it broke the swarm completely. Vexthor sat down heavily. His crystalline body showed patterns of shame and regret. They saved us. Yes, Chancellor. And we mocked them. Valshan said nothing. There was nothing to say. I want to speak with whoever is commanding the human fleet, Vexthor said. Arrange a communication link immediately. The message went out to the human ships. Most did not respond. They were too busy with damage control, keeping their vessels operational long enough to reach safe harbor. But one ship responded. The stealth carrier Silent Promise appeared on the edge of Council space 12 hours after the first human vessels. She was in better condition than most, but even she showed the scars of battle. Her hull was pitted with acid burns. Several of her fighter bays were sealed and venting atmosphere. Her main communications array was destroyed, so she communicated through a backup system. This is Fleet Admiral Choi Seo-yeon of the Earth Defense Force vessel Silent Promise, the transmission said. To whom am I speaking? Vexthor himself answered. Admiral. This is High Chancellor Vexthor of the Galactic Unity Council. On behalf of the Council, I wish to express our gratitude for... Save it, Choi interrupted. Her voice was tired but firm. I am not interested in gratitude speeches, Chancellor. I have 446 ships that are not coming home. I have 127,000 personnel dead or missing. I have survivors who need medical attention and ships that need repair facilities. Can you provide those things, or are we on our own? The bluntness shocked Vexthor, but he recovered quickly. All Council facilities are available to your fleet, Admiral. Whatever you need. Then I need dock space for 401 vessels. I need medical teams for approximately 30,000 wounded, and I need your people to stay out of our way while we work. Of course. Admiral, may I ask, what happened out there? There was a long pause. When Choi spoke again, her voice was even more tired. We did what needed doing, Chancellor. Ambassador Park warned you this was not a normal swarm attack. You did not listen, so we handled it ourselves. The swarm's queen hive is destroyed. Their breeding clusters are offline. Their communication network is shattered. They will not be a threat to Council space for at least a generation, maybe longer. You destroyed their queen hive? How? With primitive kinetic weapons and chemical explosives, Choi said, and there was bitter humor in her voice. The things your people mocked in the Council chamber. Turns out solid matter works pretty well against organic targets, especially when you hit them where they are not expecting it. But the casualties were acceptable, Choi cut him off. Barely. We knew going in that we would take heavy losses. Stealth operations in dark space against a superior enemy force. But someone had to do it, and Earth does not wait for permission to do what is right. The transmission ended. Over the next 3 days, the human fleet made its way to Council stations. Medical teams rushed to help the wounded. Engineers stared in shock at the damage some ships had taken and somehow survived. The destroyer Quiet Thunder arrived with her entire starboard side gone. Captain Park Ji-woo and his crew had sealed off half the ship and lived in the remaining sections for 2 weeks. They had lost 40% of their crew but completed their mission. The cruiser Steadfast Resolve limped in with her main engines destroyed. She had made the journey back using only maneuvering thrusters, a trip that should have taken days stretched to weeks. Her captain reported 18 dead and the ship likely beyond economic repair. The stories emerged slowly. Each ship had tales of desperate battles fought in the darkness, of striking swarm hive clusters and barely escaping, of watching sister ships die in silence, their crews making sacrifices so the mission could continue. And through it all, the human crews did not celebrate. They mourned. In the medical stations, Kalari doctors treated human wounded and marveled at their patients' resilience. "This one has burns over 30% of his body," one doctor reported. "He should be unconscious with pain. But he refuses sedation until his crew is accounted for." "This one has 3 broken ribs and a collapsed lung," another said. "She walked herself to the medical bay and only collapsed after confirming her damage control team had sealed the breach." The Torvan engineers studying the damaged ships made similar observations. "This destroyer should not be spaceworthy," one engineer told his supervisor. "The structural integrity is compromised in 12 critical points, but the crew reinforced it with whatever materials they had. There is a section held together with welded cooking pots." "And it worked?" "Well enough to get them home." Ambassador Park Min-ho returned to Council space on the 5th day. He came quietly without announcement. He went directly to the medical stations where human wounded were being treated. He walked through the wards, speaking with each survivor, thanking them, remembering names, asking about crew members who had not made it back. Commander Shivarex found him there, sitting beside the bed of a young human officer who had lost both legs in an explosion. "Ambassador Park," she said quietly, "may I speak with you?" Park looked up. His face showed the weight of everything that had happened. "Commander Shivarex, I remember you from the council chamber." Shivarex felt shame burn through her. "Yes, I was the one who mocked your offer of assistance." "I remember. I came to apologize." Park stood. He looked at the Kalari commander, and his expression was unreadable. "Your apology is noted, but it changes nothing. 446 ships, 127,000 dead." Because the council was too proud to listen. "We did not know." "You did not want to know," Park corrected. "You assumed that because humanity is young, we must be ignorant. That because our technology is different, it must be inferior. You judged us without ever trying to understand us." Shivarex had no defense. "You are right. We failed. I failed. But your people succeeded. You saved the council. You saved billions of lives." "We did what needed doing," Park said. "That is all." He turned back to the wounded officer. The conversation was over. Shivarex left the medical bay with her scales showing colors of deep regret. She had learned something important, something the whole council needed to learn. The council convened in emergency session 1 week after the human fleet's return. Every representative was present. The chamber was full. Chancellor Vexthor stood at the center. His crystalline body showed patterns of humility that few had ever seen before. "We are here to address the recent crisis," he began, "and to acknowledge the truth. The Galactic Unity Council was saved by Earth, by human military forces who fought in darkness and silence while we remained ignorant of their sacrifice." He gestured to the displays showing the damaged human ships in dock. 446 human vessels were lost in action. 127,000 human lives. They died fighting a war we did not know was happening. Died protecting species who had mocked them. Died doing what we could not or would not do. The chamber was silent. "I have reviewed the tactical reports," Vexthor continued. "What Earth accomplished was extraordinary. Their forces penetrated deep into swarm territory. They identified and destroyed the queen hive, the breeding clusters, the command infrastructure. They did this with weapons we considered primitive, with tactics we thought outdated. They succeeded where our advanced technology would have failed." Admiral Carvin stood. "I have studied human military doctrine," he said. "What they did makes sense now. The swarm adapts to energy weapons. But kinetic weapons? Solid projectiles? The swarm had no defense against that. Earth knew this. Earth planned for it. While we relied on what had always worked, humanity looked for what would work better. Another representative stood. But why did they not tell us their plan? Why disappear without explanation? Kim Jae-won rose from his seat. Permission to speak, Chancellor? Speak. Analyst Kim. I believe I can answer that. Earth did try to explain. Ambassador Park presented tactical analysis. He warned that the swarm was different this time. He offered military assistance, and the Council laughed at him, told him to leave warfare to the civilized species. So Earth stopped asking for permission. Kim paused, then continued. There is a saying on Earth. It is easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. Humanity knew the Council would not approve of a deep space strike into swarm territory. Too risky, too aggressive. So they did not ask. They just did what needed doing. And lost half their fleet, someone said quietly. Yes, Kim agreed. They lost half their fleet. And saved the entire Council. I believe they would say it was worth it. The session continued for hours. Representatives debated, argued, discussed. Finally, a resolution was proposed. The Galactic Unity Council formally recognizes the sacrifice of Earth's military forces in defense of Council space. We acknowledge that human tactical doctrine and weapons technology proved effective in circumstances where our own approaches failed. We propose that Earth be granted full voting membership in the Council and that human military experts be consulted in future defensive planning. The vote was unanimous. But when they tried to contact Admiral Choi to inform her of the Council's decision, they found the human fleet was already leaving. The repairs were not complete. Many ships were still damaged. But the humans had done what they could with what they had, and now they were going home. Choi's final transmission was brief. Thank you for the medical assistance and repair facilities. Earth appreciates the Council's hospitality, but our people want to go home. We have memorials to hold, families to comfort. We do not need recognition. We need to take care of our own. Admiral, please wait, Vexthor transmitted. The Council wants to honor your fallen. We want to— Chancellor, Choi interrupted gently. With respect, Earth does not fight for honor or recognition. We fight because it is right, because someone has to. The Council can pass whatever resolutions it wants. But the humans who died out there in dark space, they did not die for Council approval. They died protecting people they had never met. That is enough. The human fleet departed Council space in good order, despite their damage. They formed up in a ragged but disciplined formation and jumped to faster-than-light travel, heading back to Earth. Lee Hana watched them go from her fighter. They saved us all, her wingman said. And they are just leaving. No parades. No celebrations. That is how Earth is, Lee Hana said quietly, thinking of her grandmother's stories. They do what needs doing. Then they go home. In the weeks that followed, the Council tried to understand what had happened. Military analysts studied every piece of data they could find. Engineers examined the human weapons and tactics. Diplomats tried to establish better relationships with Earth. And slowly, a new understanding emerged. Humanity's technology was not primitive. It was different. Where the Council had spent millennia perfecting energy weapons and shields, Earth had perfected the art of kinetic warfare, of stealth, of striking from unexpected angles. Their primitive railguns could hit harder than energy lances because they delivered solid mass at extreme speeds. Their outdated chemical explosives worked perfectly in environments where energy weapons failed. Their simple tactics of hitting targets from darkness and disappearing before counterattacks could be organized were devastatingly effective. Earth had not been primitive. Earth had been specialized. And in the right circumstances, that specialization was exactly what was needed. Director Val Shawn compiled a full report on the human operation. He titled it The Silent War, How Earth Defeated the Void Swarm. It became required reading for every military officer in Council space. The final section of the report contained a warning. Humanity fights differently than the Council. They accept higher risks. They embrace unconventional tactics. They are willing to make sacrifices that other species would consider unacceptable. This is not a weakness. It is a strength. But it is also a warning. The species we mocked as primitive just accomplished what the combined Council fleets could not. We should remember that before we judge them again. 3 months after the battle, Ambassador Park returned to the Council chamber. He came alone as he had before. He wore the same simple black suit. The representative stood as he entered. A gesture of respect. Park nodded in acknowledgement, but did not smile. Ambassador Park, Vex Thor said, the Council has voted to grant Earth full membership. We want to formally apologize for our previous attitude toward your people. Apology accepted, Park said simply. We also want to establish a new military cooperation protocol. We hope to learn from Earth's tactical approach. Park was quiet for a moment. Chancellor, Earth will share what we know. But understand this. Humanity did not develop our military doctrine to impress anyone. We developed it because we had to. Because our world taught us hard lessons about survival, about doing whatever was necessary, about fighting in ways that others would not. We understand that now. Do you? Park looked around the chamber. Because in 3 months I expect you will forget. You will go back to seeing Earth as the primitive newcomers, and the next time there is a crisis, you will make the same mistake. Assume we have nothing to contribute. Ignore our warnings until you need us again. Vex Thor's light patterns showed shame. We will try to do better. Try is not enough, Chancellor, but it is a start. Park moved toward his seat. Earth will remain a member of the Council. We will contribute where we can, but we will also remember who stood with us and who laughed at us when we tried to help. He sat down. The session began, and in the human section, Ambassador Park Min-ho sat quietly, representing a species that had proven itself in the only way that truly mattered. Not through words, through action, not through boasting, through sacrifice, not through demanding respect, through earning it. The Council had mocked Earth, but Earth had answered with something more powerful than any mockery. Earth had answered with victory. Silent, deadly, complete, and the galaxy would never forget.